Lessons in Leadership today, we have Michael Gove, Chief Executive of the Sydney Stock Exchange. Michael, it's great to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Paul. Great to be here. I look forward to the discussion.
So Michael, I guess first and foremost, the first question I've got, and it's the first question I ask everybody, is can you spend a couple of minutes introducing yourself for those who don't know you, and just talk a little bit about your story and how you've got to where you are today?
No, thanks for that. As said, I'm Michael Gove. I'm the Chief Executive of the Sydney Stock Exchange, which is it's a Tier 1 stock exchange in Australia. My background is been investment banking for over 30 years. And I came via BZW, Barclays, ABN AMRO. I spent 12 years with ABN AMRO Bank, working in various locations, Australia, in Asia and in the UK, looking after regional and global portfolios, which was thoroughly enjoyable. For me, I was fortunate enough to work with a really international company in ABN AMRO Bank, and have been developed out of Australia into the region and into a global position. So thoroughly enjoyed that. Tried to mix with an interest between technology and business and growth from large businesses, startups, and helping to develop the full life cycle of businesses. So I have this fascination with developing and building businesses, and thoroughly enjoyed it. So that's my background. I love working in teams. Came from a background of playing sports, team sports, rugby included, of course, and just enjoy working together with other people to create something.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you mentioned they're working in different countries and different cultural aspects. How did you adopt to working in sort of different countries, different cultures, and how did you find the experience?
My background is, my cultural background has a lot to do with it and upbringing. I think you need to be flexible and aware of the surroundings that you have. My father being Chinese, my mother being Italian. So, of course, from a young age, understanding and appreciating different cultures and being flexible enough to flip between the two has been important. But I would say that standing back and listening, watching what goes on around you was very, very important. I worked for ABN AMRO, and one of the best things that they offered was a course on multicultural, doing business in different cultures. So understanding what yes or no means in different cultures was very, very important. Along with what you know inherently from your cultural background or your educational background, learning along the way professionally is really important too. And that's what I did, and I think, as I say, keeping your eyes and ears open and being sympathetic towards cultural differences helped me a lot. I really enjoy it.
Okay, cool. So what have been the sort of biggest leadership lessons you've learned throughout your career?
Yeah, look, the biggest ones for me, obviously, is that you can lead from anywhere. You don't have to be the most senior person to be a leader. You can lead for your component or for that particular purpose from anywhere in the team. So for a particular deal, you might be a deal maker or an analyst, but you may be the leader for that particular portion of the deal or the deal itself. Leading a business, yes, you will take the mantle as the chief executive in running that business and accountability, but there are others who lead as well. So anyone can lead. I think everyone can lead or has the potential to lead from anywhere within a business. The other thing for me is around listening and listening first, as well as, the fact that I say this, I'm happy to be the dumbest guy in the room. You don't have to be the smartest guy or the best at everything. You need to be the best equipped for the particular role. And as a leader and a chief executive, it doesn't mean that you need to be the best at every single role within the organisation. So, at times you will be technically the dumbest guy in the room, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember one of my first bosses many years ago. He said to me, "Paul, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Remember to use them in that order."
Yes, I think I remember being told something like that too many years ago.
Yeah,
sticks with
absolutely.
you. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think we'll come on to COVID now, and just ask how you've gone about managing the COVID pandemic and how it's affected you and your business. I know in Australia, it's probably not been quite as bad as it has been here in Europe, but I know that you're having your challenges now. So what have been the impacts on your business, and how have you gone about coping with them?
Oh, look, the impacts on our business are really market based, but in terms of leadership around the people and the organisation, it's not been easy because we all have mixed teams. We've got people with their own commitments. We've got mothers with children. We've got people with elderly parents or whatever their story is. So everyone needs some support. Even the single people you need to keep an eye on because of the challenges around isolation, mental health. Very important. Ensuring that not only can you run a business and you can resource the business adequately, but maintaining that in a very empathetic way, understanding and trying to understand along with your leadership team what drives people, what's their motivation, how do you keep them in good health and mental health at the same time under pressure. We know that sitting at the end of a video can be quite lonely, particularly when you see, you've got talking to someone every day and there may be a corporate background behind them rather than what's really going on. You're never quite sure. So the art there is to really engage with people. You may be on a Zoom call, but give them a telephone call later and say, "You okay? Do you need anything?" You can't do it for everyone, but that's where you promote the idea of everyone being a leader and everyone being able to talk to their colleagues, counterparts, best outcome for their colleagues and the organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that actually brings me into an interesting point. How do you go about motivating people and leading and showing compassion in leadership when things aren't necessarily going well?
There are a couple of ways to deal with it. Some people prefer to just crack on, and you know what, the only way is to get on the bus or get off. I think under pressure, you need to reassure people that it is okay to be wrong. You're never going to be 100% correct, but importantly that there's a purpose. Everyone's in it together, right? There's a focus and a goal to maintain, to strive for, whether it be just to get through that period, the lockdown period, without having, for example, in a stock exchange, without having a technical failure or a break from the market, or listees or companies not understanding their obligations because you're not there to remind them. So there's a whole range of things, but really it is about being there together, being in it together, and it's not it's your problem, it's our problem, or it's our opportunity, or it's our win, and people feeling that. So being showing empathy towards their situation, which is our situation, and striving for a purpose and a goal. I think that's what really drives people in terms of getting the most out of them and us during the hard times.
How do you measure yourself as a leader then?
Look, I'm quite, I've always said I operate via the values of trust, respect, integrity, and professionalism, TRIP. and it is a trip. Your career and your life is a journey or a trip. I measure myself through those values, or I try to. But the way in which you can really reflect that is the mirror, which is your team. You engage with people. I'm not seeking reassurance every day, but what I like to do is to I'm open to feedback, whether it be from from the chairman of the board, or the investors, to staff, or customers, or just mates in the market. I think you should be open to communication, open to feedback and input, and really then you judge yourself. If you're really open to that, and you listen. I don't like to have too much noise, but there are key people and key triggers that will remind you of your performance and give you a clear indication. Of course, yes, there are KPIs. Yes, you've got your performance contracts that you need to maintain, but the reality is, you can do that and manage your own performance, your leadership performance, via your engagement and your interaction with others.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that leads me nicely into the next part, really. And you've touched on it a little bit there, where you talked about engagement. But how do you know when your leadership is becoming less effective, and how do you change it?
Again, it is around the feedback. Look, put simply, it's around engagement. And if you engage with people and their reaction is that they're not engaged, or their engagement is reducing, they're not focusing on the things that you need to, then I think that's how you can really tell how that is progressing, and whether the team is performing.
How do you manage the work-life balance, Michael? So we all know it's sometimes in business, it's you've got to put everything into it, and you hit the red lines, and managing that is tough on occasion. But how do you find that balance so that you have that space to learn, to reflect, and to bring you into a place where you can drive forward again?
Look, it isn't easy. It's very, very difficult. I'm not sure that I have that balance right as yet. I love a game of golf. I love watching the rugby. I love all of that. I like to go fishing, right? And have a couple of socialise with my mates, have a couple of drinks with my mates. When being in Australia, I feel that I can do that a little bit more when, for example, I was working, it might sound counterintuitive, but when working in Hong Kong, again, it was more difficult. You do more client entertaining, you do more travel. People think, oh, that's great, that's fun. Actually, you're actually switched on all the time, and can be quite stressful. But you're out having a drink, you're out having dinner. Well, it is very, very a busy time. So it's not what you think it is. So I try to, when I get the opportunity, as I say to my team, relax when you can, when the time is right, relax, try, it's not down tools, but if you need to take time, a couple of days, have a long weekend, go away somewhere, relax, do whatever you like to do, because there will be times when it's going to be, full on, and it's going to be very stressful. So take the opportunities when you can to enjoy your family or your hobbies or whatever you like to do to switch off. And it's easier said than done. That's all I can say. But yeah.
It is much easier said than done. I know pre-pandemic, I took up boxing, which I found a great stress relief. It's exercise, but equally you can take out your frustration on the pads or the bag, and I just found it great. But obviously, with the pandemic, the gyms have been shut for nearly a year, and the close quarters combat has been pretty much off the cards. So at times I've tried to find ways that I can replace that with other things. But I think it is tough at times.
Yeah, for sure. But the odd game of golf when you can, or getting out to ride a bike, or drop a line in, it all helps. Read a book.
I've got a friend, and his way of dealing with it is to take himself up to Scotland and go fishing for a week or two, and he doesn't speak to anybody at all during that period. And he has a habit of booking free slots on the river, and that's not so that he can get more fish. It's so that there's nobody can potentially speak to him at all during that period.
Very smart, very smart. Yeah. I've got a mate in Abergavenny in Wales, and he was in the financial markets and now leads tours. His business is doing tours, taking fishing tours and things like that. So he lives on a lovely, beautiful farm, and I do envy that lifestyle that he has. So maybe one day I'll get there.
Definitely. What's been the biggest leadership challenge you've faced in your career, and how did you go about overcoming it?
Yeah, look, that's a really good question. In my career, as you know, there have been many black swans in terms of the financial markets and the like. And we've seen, 9/11. We had a couple of guys over there at the time who were doing some client presentations, and watched, people falling out of the sky. It was horrendous, and trying to get them out. Probably the biggest challenge was having team members. So, this was in Asia. One of the locations that we had an office in, the team did a deal with some not so nice people on the side of the government, and I won't give specifics, but all three of those people, including one lady who was pregnant, were arrested, right, and put in prison. And so for me, there was a heavy obligation to try and help out. There were months and months of lobbying. The requirement to get them out was, you've got to pay $5 million US, otherwise you never get them out. An organisation that said no, we'll use government political push to try and get them out. Again, it was textbook words, and that was how it was going to happen. And unfortunately, the answer was, you don't pay the money, you don't get them out. In the end, after that 3 or 4 months, it may have been longer. Guess what? Paid the money to get them out, and they'd done nothing wrong. But yet, in a third world prison, these were local people, and all through just doing their day-to-day job. So you can say that there are leadership challenges around doing business. You can say that there are leadership challenges around making your revenue targets or whatever. But okay, along with that, what happens if, staff get arrested or for nothing they've done wrong? You're responsible for trying to look after them and get them out. That's an added dimension, which must be handled maturely and carefully, with the right sort of support, and lobbying the right people on the board, lobbying the right people in head office to try and get something done. Notwithstanding the fact that you're in the middle of also being moved to, a promotion into another job in another location. What do you do? So the answer is you continue and you look after them. You've got to do your best to help them, and that's the sort of thing that I call real authentic leadership. Because the easy option would be to just walk away.
Yeah, no, I mean, and authenticity is sort of a key point in my mind to any leader succeeding. But I guess in that kind of situation, it must be incredibly stressful knowing that you've got other people's lives in your hands, where you wouldn't necessarily have to deal with that day to day in most jobs.
Yeah, and to be in that situation, to have counterparts within the organisation, um, even in the region, merely wanting to do the, what do I think? What would they think the board would want to do? Oh, okay. Well, let's just play the political game and leave it with the government, rather than let's going directly to discuss, negotiate, and in the end, pay. So there's a difference between authentic actions and deeds, as opposed to, look, I'm doing what the organisation says. I'm doing what I think the senior guys want to do. So don't I look good? Well, in the end, I can look myself in the mirror and say that, not only did I do the best for the business, but also for the people concerned, which I believe is important. You need to be able to do that. At least I think so, and that is around authentic leadership.
No, absolutely. Moving on to something else then, which is around leadership qualities. I mean, we as an executive search firm are asked to search for some strange things at times, as I'm sure you can imagine. But we often find there are certain qualities which organisations overemphasise, which actually don't have a dramatic impact on performance or ability to perform a role, and actually can lead to a lack of diversity and inclusion. So what would you say are the leadership qualities which you think are overrated, and why do you feel that?
Look, there are obviously many of those, and it's cyclical, right? So some of those, depending on the cycles of the consulting world that you enter into, one cycle may say that you just need good managers who don't actually understand the business. The good managers will always bring you through and win the day. Another time in the cycle, it may be what you need are product specialists who understand a particular function and can run that to the nth degree. I think both are not great, because you need a broader skill set, but a familiarity with a particular industry, sector, or business. I think the other thing around the old boys network, where you look like me in terms of where I come from a school, or a network of we work together, so you must be right. I know you're going to think like me, and again, that presents a lot of risk. I think diversity is key, but my dimension around diversity is far broader. I think there's diversity of thought, not only gender, not only race or ethnicity. I think you get the whole lot, and you need a mix. I've seen the case where there's a group of 50-year-old white guys on the board of a particular organisation, and that's what they're seeking. But someone gets thrown in who's slightly different, and the answer is, well, we're looking for a cultural fit. But it's a shame, because, as you said earlier, the diversity angle is key. The risk angle is key. If people aren't asking questions, what was it in Japan where they said we don't like women on boards because they ask too many questions? The meeting will go for too long. I don't think, it's a rather rhetorical argument, because we know that presents a lot of problems in that old school way. So I think there are a lot of those sorts of traits that are overplayed, that don't bring as much value as people would hope, other than to support the guy doing the hiring.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fascinating, is diversity and inclusion. I think more and more people have become aware of it, and obviously it's a huge issue on the agenda of every business globally. But even still, people don't really think about what they're telling you on occasion when they go to market to search for somebody. So we had an interesting situation with a financial services business. I won't name names, but I was speaking to the chair, and she really wanted to build a diverse board. She was the only female on the board. The rest were all males in their 50s or 60s, and she really wanted to build diversity. And she then gave me a list of really technical criteria as to what she wanted in the individual. And I got to the end of it and I said, right, I can deliver you all of that, but it won't be a diverse hire. It will be a middle-aged 50-year-old bloke who's been to, one of 5 universities. And she looked at me and she said, why is that? I said, because there's only one woman in the entire country that matches the description you're telling me about. And I know she wouldn't be interested in that role because you've narrowed it down too much. And in the end, we chatted about the composition of the board, the skills matrix of the board, and what they actually already had. And when we looked at that, there was a glaringly obvious gap where we could bring somebody in who would fill that gap, add knowledge, add experience. Could be a massively diverse hire because there's so many individuals out there who had that skill set. And therefore, by probing and questioning and tweaking, we actually took them from a place where they would have made the same hire again, even though they didn't want to, because they'd not thought about how to implement it properly.
Yeah, definitely. And that goes back to listening, the art of listening. Talk to people, listen, and you'll be surprised at the requirements and information that falls out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I've got one final question, Michael, and this is a question I ask everybody. If you were the interviewer, what question would you ask yourself that I haven't asked you here today?
I'd ask them, what drives you? What drives you to come to this interview, and why would you want to help us to build this firm? What is it that you're trying to do? Why are you here? What drives you, motivates you?
So do you want to answer that question? What drives and motivates you?
Yeah, again, it's a fascination with building something and building something great and sharing it. It's almost like people like to tinker with cars, motorbikes, things like that. Well, I don't have a mechanical bone in my body. I thought at one stage that perhaps I could have when I was 17, but the fact is that what do I like to do? I really get enjoyment out of whether it's a mature business that's about to go off the edge and keeping it there and actually growing it, which is fascinating, or a small business which is a startup or a high growth business that needs a slight tweaking or something else, new ingredient to help it really grow and reach its potential, and to develop people as well along the way. I find it fascinating to see guys and girls that I worked with, and to an extent, whether you call it mentorship or just advised, to see those guys now running large funds, doing extremely well in some of the largest organizations. It brings me a lot of satisfaction in seeing how they perform. So there's the dimension of the business and the people that drive me, and you want to do it right. So unfortunately or fortunately, your work is also your hobby.
Yeah, no, I know that feeling. Someone asked me once, what do I enjoy doing now? I like reading and understanding problems, and then looking at that in a real life setting, and how do I apply what I've learned and change things to make it better? And so I completely get where you're coming from in terms of making what you do practical, and your hobby becomes what you do.
Yeah. I like to simplify. I love it when I see someone, and I say to them, look, guys, it's not an intelligence test when you see someone giving a presentation. People glaze over. Do you want to be seen as the most intellectual guy or the most intelligent guy in the room giving your presentation, or the guy that was able to clearly give a demonstration or a presentation of a point or a business or a pitch, and that everyone understood what you said? I don't see that very often, but that's the joy of it, is to say, look, okay, well, how can we break this down? How can we make it easily understood, so that we can either help build this business through a strategy which is clear, simple, precise, but yet there's some smarts underneath it, or a pitch that the customer can understand and not be baffled by. And in simplifying the message, you gain trust. And I think that's where you see it. So just to enjoy those things in terms of what's the problem, as you said, let's understand it, let's break it down a little bit, and then let's turn it a bit to our advantage to help grow a business or grow a person or an individual or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think back to a conversation I had with one of my bosses early in my career, and I was in a board presentation, and the board clearly did not want to do what I was suggesting and did not really understand the need for it. I was probably 5 or 6 years ahead of where they needed to be in their thinking. And I remember my boss saying to me as I was complaining afterwards, and he just turned around to me and said, well, what would you rather be, Paul, right or rich? He said, you're going to get well paid for doing as they want you to do, or you can be right, and probably end up fighting battles for the next few years that you don't need to fight.
Yeah, exactly. Although there is a balance, fundamentally, you can be technically right, and it's in the details that the execution team will look at later, and you need to have that level of detail. But it's around, what is it that gets the story across, where everyone gets it and they align, they buy in, and you can move forward. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're not conceding, but you're actually strengthening your case, the underlying details of what you're trying to prove, with a very easily understood message up top.
Mm.
Not always easy. Absolutely. Not easy to do that.
No, it's not. No, obviously, I still laugh now, because when I see my former boss every now and again, still laugh, and we laugh about that occasion, because I was right. The problem was I couldn't take the board with me, and it was a learning experience for me, because I was talking about digitization 6-7 years before the rest of the business was even considering digitization. And because of where they ended up doing it, they were behind the curve. Whereas, at the time we could have done it and have been in front of the curve. But it was my fault, because I didn't get the message across, and I didn't convince the board.
Yeah. It's a bit like startups, the smartest and brightest and inventor of a concept or a piece of machinery or something new, sometimes their invention never gets commercialized because of the unfortunate story that they tell. They dive into the technical details with investors, as opposed to telling a very crisp business story that excites the investors. So it's rather than telling your story, you've got to tell the story that the investor or the audience wants to hear. So we've seen that a lot, and trying to bring that into business with bright young guys and girls straight out of uni or straight out of the consulting firms. It's not easy. Because they want to prove how smart they are, which is great. They can be even smarter if they take a step back. And
Absolutely. It was a lesson I learned, and it stuck with me for a long time.
Yeah, we've all done it. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Michael, thank you very much for your time today. It's been great to have you on the show.
You're welcome. Look, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Paul. And I hope a little bit of what I said was entertaining or resonates with the audience. And I'd be happy to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. It'd be great to have you back. All right, Michael, thank you for today.
Thank you. You're welcome.